Jai Hind viewers, on Prudent TV we decided to do a special program as the MiG-21 fighter aircraft, which was phased out on 26th of September in Chandigarh after a glorious 62 years of its service for the nation and particularly Indian Air Force. I am Air Vice Marshal Nanodkar, retired from Air Force in 2017, and with me in our crew room are 4 generations of pilots who have flown MiG-21 aircraft. From my left is the oldest and the best stalwart of MiG-21 platform, Group Captain Suresh Ratnaparkhi, who has participated in both 65 and 71 operations. Next to him is the youngest pilot, who of course has retired few years back, is Group Captain Nitin Kanitkar. And next to him is another stalwart on from MiG-21 platform is Group Captain Joseph Noronha. All four of us now are in Goa. And today we are going to take you through MiG-21 journey of Indian Air Force. So having introduced all the pilots, I would start with Joseph. I think you are the best person to go through the history of MiG-21 for our viewers.
Yes, I think maybe I'm the best person because my age more or less coincides with that of the MiG-21. Wow. I was just about a year old when the MiG-21 first flew in 1955, in June 1955. I was a year old. So if you want to get an idea of how old it is, just look at me. It's 1 year younger than I am. It started actually in the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. The Soviet Union wanted some answer to the high-flying threat from the US Air Force, to which they had no answer. So they came up with the MiG-21. Its sole purpose when it was designed was to intercept high-flying aircraft. So strangely enough, the first version that came had only missiles. It was armed with missiles and nothing else. Today it's unbelievable for us who have fired practically every weapon from the MiG-21, but at that time it was a pure interceptor. It did its job as it was, and in fact it did it so well that the Soviet Union built about 11,500 of it, and it spread all over the world. Around 60 nations in many countries, around 60 nations all over the world were equipped with the MiG-21. India also was one of them. In fact, I think apart from the Soviet Union, is probably the largest operator, single operator of the MiG-21. There's also China. Now what China did is they reverse engineered the MiG-21. They called it the F-7 and F-7P, but that was not a pure MiG-21. They just got a few from the Soviet Union, which they very skillfully reverse engineered. They sold it or managed to export some of them, as many as 2,500. So if you add the total, it comes to something like 10,000, almost 11.5 years, about 14,000 aircraft. But let's take it as 11.5. Now the Indian Air Force came on the scene after the 1961 war. So having test float has been done the first flight in 1955, by 1959, the Soviet Air Force was equipped with this aircraft, the first few. And just about 4 years later is when the Indian Air Force got the first lot. That was a pure interceptor, and I think the pilots must have been a bit shocked because there was nothing else the aircraft could do. But there was a lot of interaction, I understand, between the IAF and the Soviets. And also after some time, the HAL got involved, and the improvements came thick and fast. So after the MiG-21 FL, which was the basic interceptor, came the MiG-21M, which is the ground attack version with air defense capability, and finally the MiG-21 BIS, which is basically air defense but with good ground attack capability as well. And the ultimate modification that came was unique to India, the MiG-21 Bison, which is what we have all heard probably because that dominated the skies in the last 15 or 20 years. That was totally an IAF product, IAF in consultation with HAL and with the Soviets also involved, MiG-21 Bison. In fact, it became an international affair because some Swedish things were there, some Swedish equipment, some Israeli equipment, and of course basically the Soviet equipment.
Can I just, take this conversation to the ground attack part of it, because in 1971 operations, I think that was a decisive operation because of performance of MiG-21 and Hunter. So we have one, stalwart from MiG-21, cockpit, who has done a lot of damage in to the then East Pakistan. So Suresh sir, can you just take us back to your 71 experience and what it was and how that platform, which was you all converted into pure air defense to ground attack version, and how it was effectively utilized in 71 operation?
We used it in both the roles, air defense where required, but mostly for the ground attack. So we carried out ground attack, rocket attacks and bombing attacks against ground targets, army particularly, and some other targets like the university and the governor's house and the Dhaka runway and the Kurmitola runway and the Pakistan radio station and their storage depots. So all these things we used, the rockets and the bombs.
I think you had some special Russian bombs also, which you all...
They were not special, they were M62 500 kg bombs, and they were old Second World War vintage, and we used those bombs effectively, but for that you had to do a steep glide bombing attack, in the sense you climb to about 4-5 kilometers and dive at an angle of 35 to 40 degrees and release the bomb by about 1 to 1.5 kilometers, and with that we hope to get the bombs on the target, and in most cases we did.
Actually, that is what I remember. We used to do normal bombing at around 15 to 20 degrees. So I think doing it at 35-40 degrees, you would have had to be very smart with pulling out of the dive, because the ground would rush at you very fast. So I think a lot of calculations and all must have gone in, a lot of planning must have gone in.
Absolutely. It had to be all planned. You knew exactly where you were diving, you knew exactly what you're aiming at, and you knew that you had to pull out with a minimum of 5G force to get out of the dive into level flight or slightly climbing flight. So that's the way it was, and we had to do all the calculations for this.
And I think some of your, those days, some of the strikes that you carried out, induction done by 28 Squadron, then thereafter 4 squadrons were formed of MiG-21s, and then 71 operations happened, and the decisive, strike that happened on the governor's house, I think some of you were involved in those strikes. So can you just...
No, I wasn't personally involved. I carried out the strikes on the university where the army was supposed to be taking shelter.
But I'm sure some of your colleagues, some of your friends, close friends.
4 of my squadron mates who took part in this governor's house, I didn't, because I had flown up earlier sorties, so I had sort of I gave this task to these other youngsters who were with me. I was the flight commander then, and so they went and struck the governor's house, and when the rockets fell into governor's, I think
drawing
room, he said, "This is enough, I am surrendering." And this is,
I'm sure.
And this is how that very afternoon the East Pakistan surrendered.
Actually, that is what one of the very decisive victory, and that is what created a nation. I think world over everybody acknowledges that India has been one of the great achievements of our country is that we have liberated a nation by doing some decisive action, and Air Force was involved in that. Nitin, I think in this crew room, sorry, I had to keep you back a little bit. You were, trying to catch up with all three of us ahead of you. But you had a long stint on MiG-21s. You not only you were operational on MiG-21, but also you had, upgraded yourself to MiG-29s and then came back to MiG-21s for training role. I think if I remember correctly, or you must have gone from operational squadron to training squadron and then upgraded to MiG-29, whatever the sequence may be. But I think one of the challenges that this fleet has gone through is that in absence or the delays that were there in getting the intermediate trainer, which forced the Air Force to continue training on MiG-21 without any intermediate, arrangement for training. So how was your experience of that training part of it? And while you cover that or after that, can you narrate an anecdote which was a real hair-raising one for our viewers to just understand what MiG-21 was all about?
Sir, personally, I was initially posted to a MiG-21 training squadron itself for my basic training, after which I got posted to one of the operational squadrons in Southwestern Air Command, 32 Squadron, called the Thunderbirds. And I did a stint there for almost about 4 years, after which I was posted to a MiG-29 squadron. And having completed my tenure in the MiG-29 squadron, I went for my flying instructor's course, followed by a stint with the Surya Kirans, after which I was posted to a MiG-21 training squadron in the east, namely Chabuas. Now Chabua was at that point among the 3 bases that handled MiG-21 training. The others were Tezpur, and there was 1 squadron in Bagdogras. I think this whole thing about MiG-21 being used as a training aircraft probably started in the late 70s and early 80s, when the Indian Air Force inducted most of its other aircraft, the MiG-23s, the MiG-27s, the Jaguars, the Mirages. Everything came within 5 to 7 years. And suddenly you had a demand for pilots, an increase in training requirements. So what I went through personally as a trainee when I trained in MOF2, that was formed in 1986 in Tezpur itself. Something similar, similar role was given to 52 Squadron where I was posted. And the training demand was so high that within 6 months you had to train a fixed number of pilots because if you overshot or you were short of your training requirements for a particular semester, it would eventually spill over to the next semester. And that could not be done in that sense. So the training demands were very high. And we found that people who came for ab initio training, it was a kind of a big jump from, even if you came from a Kiran aircraft, which is a jet aircraft.
So what are the speeds like in terms of?
I mean, if you roughly compare, say, the takeoff speeds almost tripled and the landing speeds were almost double in a MiG-21 as compared to a Kirans. So there was a huge jump in that sense. And all through the sortie, because the speeds were so high, your monitoring times in the cockpit shrank initially. So everything happened in a haze. From your takeoff, you suddenly found yourself at 5 kilometers before you could realize what was happening. So the time that was taken by the trainee to adapt to that, to the MiG-21, it took him some time before he could be a little comfortable in that cockpits.
In fact, I remember my instructor telling me when I started, when I was going for my first sortie, that when you get a kick on your backside, just release brakes and you will get airborne on your own. I mean, that is what exactly he told me. And when I actually went on the runway and engaged the afterburner, that is exactly what happened. So I think we all must have had a similar experience. on our first sortie of MiG-21 going from training aircraft to a MiG-21, and of course Suresh sir had gone from a subsonic aircraft, fighter aircraft to MiG-21. So I think most of us must have experienced that kick on our backside.
Absolutely, sir. You engage afterburner, you release brakes. The next thing you knew, you were at 2.5 kilometers.
Wow.
And sometimes your undercarriage was still down. So it was a fantastic experience getting airborne. I'll tell you a small thing that happened to me, which is often talked about in the Air Force as something that could happen to anybody, but we all believe it cannot happen to us. It's a thing called disorientation, and it happened to me at night, on a dark night in the Jodhpur, Barmer, Uttarlai sector.
Desert area.
Desert areas. And it was a dark night where you have little or no reference to the ground, and everything looks like a dark bowl. And it's one of those sorties where we were doing a practice interception, and suddenly I found myself completely disoriented, because
So
I think I was...
disorientation means you don't know.
You don't know the
with
sky
reference
from
to-
the ground or
Yeah,
otherwise.
With reference to your horizon, or you don't know whether you're upside down or moving sideways. The senses are not in place.
Yeah, your instruments are telling you what kind of attitude you are in, but your body is telling you something quite different, and you get a feeling as if you're climbing, you may be in a descent, and vice versa.
It can be dangerous.
It can be extremely dangerous, and that is the time I discovered that the MiG-21 has a leveling mode, and on the autopilot, which is actually a lifesaver in that sense. Moment you engage the level mode, the autopilot gets the aircraft wings level, and it levels out the attitude also. So this little small little facility is not available in aircraft like the Mirage 2000, or I think even the Jaguars do not have this facility on their autopilots.
Jaguars don't have autopilot also, so we'll talk about level mode. So Joe sir, I think this is where I would like to get you on, to telling the viewers as to, there is a name given to MiG-21 as a widow maker or a coffin, flying coffin. What's your take on that, sir?
I think it's totally a manufactured name given to it, because it is just very far from reality. Yes, fighter flying is dangerous, it does happen in all cases, but just consider the sheer number and the longevity of this aircraft. There were about 850 MiGs flying in the Air Force over a period of 62 years. Practically every Air Force pilot at one time or the other, every Air Force fighter pilot has flown it. There were 19 squadrons and 400 aircraft MiGs flying at a peak. There will be accidents. There will be some accidents. Now, if you think they're happening in rapid succession, it is like something like a Maruti on the road a few years ago. Every aircraft in the report you find Maruti. What was the reason? The Maruti was not unsafe. It is just that there were so many Marutis around that that was happening.
Yeah, and as a captain of the aircraft, I am signing for the aircraft which is fully serviceable. I am checking it out. So yes. It is my responsibility to know whether the aircraft is fully serviceable or not in takeoff. It's only that unfortunately there have been a lot of fatal accidents on MiG-21, but that's, I think, pilots did not have the chance to get out. So that means they were below the minima in when the incident or accident has happened, or they have delayed their punching out from the cockpit. So I think what I gather from your answer is that I think it's a name given to given by people who have no connection with actually flying the MiG-21, as I understand. Suresh sir, on 26th of September you went to Chandigarh to see her off. How was the feeling?
Oh, wonderful. Only thing is that I was sitting on one side and couldn't go across to where the big wigs are.
But just the seeing the aircraft and touching it.
But at the end of it, I was in a wheelchair because the walking was not too easy. So we went up to the aircraft and I stood, I was next to the aircraft touching it, and my son-in-law who was with me took photographs of that and all. And
Must have been fantastic feelings.
I met a few of the youngsters who had trained with me in 30 Squadron. They came and said, and so it was nice meeting them. It was extremely hot, so we just couldn't quite hang on to it very long. And at the end of it, we didn't wait for the lunch or anything. We just peeled off from there, that's it. So, but it was a nostalgic feeling.
And now to the youngest boy in the formation. How was the feeling? You were also there in Chandigarh.
Experience, extremely well planned. I don't think ever in the Air Force again you will have such a gathering of people from say 3 or 4 generations. There were ex-chiefs, there were people in their, I think there's some people as old as Suresh sir of his generation. There were possibly some older than him. And then there were youngsters. So, and all of, most of the people who came there possibly knew each other because you had crossed paths in the Air Force. Some were close friends, some were acquaintances, and some whom you had crossed paths when you were meeting people elsewhere in the Air Force. So it was a really fantastic experience. There was also a fly past where the MiG-21s did their last flight, and so it was all in all a very good experience.
Chandigarh also happens to be the first and the last place. It started out in Chandigarh, the 28th Squadron. They call themselves the first Supersonics because first supersonic aircraft in the IAF. And the closing ceremony also was there.
I think it must have been one of the great experience to be there and bid farewell to such a bird which has given Indian Air Force such a fantastic service, fought through all the wars, shot down Atlantic aircraft which did some mischief on the southwestern front. We know Abhinandan shot down F-16 which towards the culmination of its journey all through more than 55-60 years of flying. And I think the platform actually stood for the Indian Air Force all throughout its service. And as I remember correctly, the Americans were studying MiG-21 platform when they were starting to design the F-16. So that's the kind of platform that we all have flown in our years in service. We all have done a lot of mischief with MiG-21, and she has forgiven us. So that is why we are sitting here and talking to our viewers today from Prudent studio in Goa. And I think with the kind of experience that Suresh sir down to Kenny, Nitin Kanitkar has shared with the viewers, I think most of the people in Goa would be now fully conversant as to what this MiG-21 bird is all about and how Indian Air Force has nurtured this fantastic platform which was brought in to do high-level interceptions, and finally it over a period of time evolved into a kind of a multi-role platform. And I think thank you Prudent for making this platform available to project MiG-21 aircraft which has done a human service to Indian Air Force and the country as a whole. And I thank all my co-panelists for taking time off and coming here and telling our viewers your experience, sharing your experience with them, and making them aware of what this MiG-21 bird was all about. So once again, thank you on behalf of Prudent Media. Suresh sir, Group Captain Noronha and Group Captain Kanitkar, thank you.